From the Fidelity Bank Foundation studio, PBS Kansas presents One-on-One with Victor Hogstrom.
This is where the movers and shakers of Kansas come to talk about their lives and careers, and we get to know the person behind the persona. This week, my guest is the Speaker of the Kansas House of Representatives, Dan Hawkins. This Wichita Republican has represented House District 100 since 2013. He became House Majority Leader in 2019 and Speaker of the House in 2023. Originally from Harper County, Representative Hawkins and his wife Diane have 2 daughters and now 2 grandchildren. We'll talk about his work and we'll get his take on the current state of politics in Kansas and across the country. Join me for a half hour with Kansas Speaker of the House of Representatives, Dan Hawkins, right now, One-on-One. Hello and thank you for joining me. I'm Victor Hogstrom. It's a delight to welcome Kansas Speaker of the House of Representatives, Dan Hawkins, to the program. Representative Hawkins, you enjoy public television. You've been watching some of it, and you are the Speaker of the House from Wichita.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, tell us about your growing up days, who influenced you, and some of the things that also influenced you as you were growing up.
Sure. I grew up on a dairy farm in south central Kansas, almost to the Oklahoma border, a little southwest of Anthony, Kansas. My grandfather and grandmother had a dairy farm there, and I literally spent all of my non-school hours on the farm.
Oh.
We had 70 Holstein cows, so we had a small dairy. Today, compared to the dairies today, it was a little bitty thing, but back then it was actually a good-sized farm. And then we had probably about 1,000 acres of cropland and pasture. But really, growing up on the farm really kind of, I believe, gave me a lot of lessons that I've carried on throughout my life.
Give me an example. What
Well, the
are some of those?
Work ethic mainly.
Okay.
We would work from sun up to sundown every day except for Sunday. Sunday was the Lord's day, so we didn't. Actually, somebody had to work on Sunday because those cows still had to be milked, but it was on a rotation basis. So about every third Sunday you would have to work. But I'm a lot of the folks up in Topeka kind of get a kick out of my sleep patterns because I'm a early to bed, early to rise guy. I'm usually in bed by 9:30, 10 o'clock, up around 4 o'clock every morning.
Wow.
And pretty much been that way my whole life. So I've kind of just carried that same pattern throughout my life. Most of my jobs, I've gotten up early and been to work early, even in Topeka. I'm usually the first one in the State House, about 6:30 every morning. That's after I go to the gym and work out for an hour. So.
Very good.
Yeah.
So during those growing up days, who influenced you the most?
Well, it was really my grandfather.
Oh, really?
My grandfather was he was quite a man. He was I would say he was a man of few words. So when he spoke, you listened. He was a very religious man. Never ever heard him swear in his whole life. I never heard him swear or say really a bad word about anybody. He was just a hard-working guy. Expected a good day's work out of all of his employees. He had 3 hired hands that he employed.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I've always looked up to him.
Were you one of the hired hands?
I was.
Ah.
I was.
So you got paid regularly?
Yes, I did get paid. I started out 50 cents an hour.
Oh, boy.
In probably, I don't know, it's probably like 1970. Started making 50 cents an hour, and I thought, wow, I was really making a lot of money. I think I made,
right?
Yeah, I think I made maybe like $250 that summer, and I thought I'd made a lot of money. But milking cows is not an easy life, and that's probably, I guess, the reason why you don't see a whole lot of dairies anymore. And the ones you do see, they're big commercial enterprises today.
So you milked cows, and did you make butter, cheese? What did you do?
No, we didn't. We didn't make any products with it. We sold all of our milk. There's a dairy here in Wichita, and they had trucks that came out and picked up our milk every other day and brought it into Wichita. And of course, they made whatever their products they were going to make with it here.
So, Representative Hawkins, why didn't you become a farmer?
Yeah, well, my uncles, when my granddad died, my uncles took over the farm. And it was on my mom's side of the family, and they decided to buy some land. That would have been back in the 80s, early 80s, and that was a pretty tough time in the farm economy. But they had 3 years in a row where they were flooded out, their crops were flooded out, and it pretty much took them under. And they never filed bankruptcy. They sold all their land, they sold all their equipment. I think they had $50,000 left in debt, and over the next 10 to 12 years, they paid it off. They did not file bankruptcy.
Was it taboo to do that?
Yeah, it was back then. They didn't want to be known as they had a debt, and it was their debt, and they were going to pay for it.
So tell us what happened after the farm life, after high school.
So I went to college, went to Hutchinson Community College. I really think a lot of what the community college's mission is and what they do. I appreciate what they do a lot. I get an opportunity every now and then as speaker to meet with the Community College Association and talk with them. I really enjoyed talking with them. Then I went to Emporia State, studied business and marketing, got a degree in marketing. And in that mix, in that time, I also, I guess it was actually after my first year at Hutchinson Community College, I went off to the Army, went to the Army National Guard, and became an artilleryman. I really enjoyed that, and for the next 12 years, I was in the National Guard. During that time, of course, I went to Emporia State and graduated from Emporia State. And then after school, after college, I went to work for a company called George A. Hormel and Company. We just know it now as Hormel, but they have products like Spam.
Right.
I was actually the Spam canning foreman in Fremont, Nebraska on the night shift. And from about 4 o'clock in the afternoon until 2 o'clock in the morning, I had 3 Spam canning lines running every night.
People, when they think about Spam, they say, ew.
Oh yeah, they do. And that's really wrong. Spam is really a simple product, amazingly simple product. It's just made of the front shoulder. We call it the picnic ham. It's made of the front shoulder ham trim to get the fat content right in there, water, salt, and nitrite, and that is all that's in Spam.
So how did insurance play a role in your life?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So after Hormel, I worked for them for about 6 years, and then I left and went to work with my dad for 4 years. We started our first business. And, sometimes fathers and sons get along, sometimes they don't. I was one of those that we didn't get along very well. And so I spent about 4 years with my dad, and then I really wanted to continue to have my own business. And insurance was one of those businesses that you could get into without much capital. You just had to really be able to weather the storm of building a business. And I did that. Started in 1995 and have been in the insurance business ever since. So I'm on, 28. I just passed 28 years on October 1st in the insurance business.
How did you develop then an interest in politics? You are now the Speaker of the House of Representatives of the state of Kansas.
Well, that's so it kind of fits hand in hand. So
insurance and politics?
I'll show you why.
Okay.
Yeah. So in insurance, there's many different places you can practice. You can specialize in, and I specialized in employee benefits.
Okay.
And group health insurance was my largest piece of my business. So I worked with small to medium-sized companies providing their benefits. And back in 2006, then Governor Kathleen Sebelius decided to bring universal health care to Kansas. And that was a real shock to me because I didn't really believe in government providing universal health care to everybody. You know, I believe in being very self-supporting, government doing what government should, but everybody else should take care of what they should take care of. And so I started getting involved with my state representative, my state senator, calling, emailing, seeing them, talking with them about that issue. It didn't actually end up happening. She finally gave it up. But during that time, I thought, if my district were to ever come open, I would want to take a shot at that. Well, in 2012 was the last redistricting, and it was an open seat at that point.
Okay.
And so I decided to run and won my primary, ran and won my general, and the rest is history.
So, Representative, what has shaped your political perspective, philosophy in politics?
Well, I really think probably my time in the National Guard, number one, shaped a lot of it. The National Guard, during my 12 years, I really got to work with some of the finest men, some of the finest leaders, I should say. At that time it was men, but now you've got both men and women in the Guard, leading the Guard, and so it's not just men. But for me, it was really some mentors that I really looked up to. I really think that they really shaped how I would live the rest of my life. And when it comes to politics, it's really about building relationships. What we do in Topeka, you can't do by yourself. It takes a minimum of 63 people in the House to pass any bill. It takes 21 in the Senate, and it takes a governor to sign that. If any three of those don't happen, any one of those three do not happen, then that bill is not going to go anywhere. Mm-hmm. And so you really have to learn to build relationships, build coalitions, and work with people for what they want as well as what you're trying to get done.
So what is that political philosophy?
Well, are you talking about from a philosophy from whether you're conservative or,
I'll leave that up to you, Representative.
So when people talk about philosophy, generally they're talking about, well, whether are you a conservative or a liberal or moderate or somewhere in between. I would say I'm a conservative from a philosophical standpoint. I believe that government has a place, mm-hmm. that government should do the things that people can't do for themselves, or what business, private enterprise can't do. I think we've lost our way in government when it comes to that. I think so many businesses believe that government should be helping them further their business, which I just don't believe that that's true. I think business should stand on their own, and if they don't stand on their own, then they probably need to go. Our free market has worked for many, many years, and we truly have the best business through a free market enterprise. So I believe in that. I believe in independence, that people should be rather independent and take care of themselves and do the things that they need to do to take care of themselves. That doesn't seem to be quite as popular today. Again, people mm-hmm. seem to want the government to take care of them, and it's just not part of my DNA. I think that we should take care of ourselves.
So when you talk about business standing on its own, 2
mm-hmm.
feet, are you including mixing profit-making businesses and nonprofits, or
I do.
All of them?
I do. Because show me a nonprofit that doesn't make a profit, and I'll show you a business that won't last very long. Even a nonprofit has to have excess revenues over expenses, which is profit. They have to have that, or they do not survive very long.
Okay.
So I always tell people, when people bring up that little piece and they say, well, what about nonprofits? Well, the only difference really between a nonprofit and a profit is a nonprofit doesn't pay taxes. The profit does. The for-profit company does pay taxes. They both have to make a profit, though, or they will not stay in business.
So has that philosophy changed over the years as you experienced politics throughout your career?
I would say for me, it probably hasn't changed, but for many people it has. Many people really believe that the government, it's the government's job to make sure that businesses make it, and it's really not. It's not government's job to do that. I think the free market works, and it works well. When businesses run into problems, if government is always there to bail them out, government will always be there to bail them out, and we probably shouldn't be in that business. Business should stand on its own.
Mm-hmm. So what was it about you that was so right to make you the Speaker of the House?
I love that question, because actually being Speaker of the House wasn't something I thought about. I never did aspire to be Speaker of the House. Mm-hmm. Before that, I became Majority Leader. Before that, I became the Health and Human Services Chair. None of those really, when I went there, was something that I thought, hey, I want to do that. In politics, many times, timing is everything. I always say you can have the best person lose at the right time, and you can have the worst person win at the right time. So truly, politics is about timing. And for me, I would say politics was about timing for me also. I was at the right place at the right time. So when I came in 2013, it was a large class in the House of Representatives. We just had redistricting, and there were 59 brand new freshmen out of 125 in the House. Almost 50% of the House was brand new.
Right.
Well, what that does is that makes that gives room for lots of opportunities early on that wouldn't normally be there. If you had a class of 20 or 30, you would have a pretty good mix of senior people and new. It made it to where the freshmen became senior pretty quick, which made the opportunity just happen a lot faster.
So in a nutshell, exactly what does the Speaker do? What's the role?
The Speaker leads the House of Representatives. It's like a company. You have a CEO, you have a couple of vice presidents, you have managers and assistant managers. The Speaker decides who is going to fill those positions. Okay. So the Speaker sets the tone. The Speaker really decides who's going to be your chairman of the committees, decides what committees there will be available, who will be the chairman, who will be the vice chairman, who will sit on each committee, where they'll sit on the floor, where they're housed as far as office space.
Oh, wow.
And so what you try to do is you really try to put together the best team you can put together.
So you have a lot of power, Mr. CEO of the House of Representatives, right?
And with power comes great responsibility.
That's true.
Lots of responsibility.
And some enemies.
Yeah, that is true. You can have enemies. I don't really believe I have many enemies. There's probably a few. Okay. It's kind of hard to not have somebody that doesn't necessarily like what you do, but I think there are very few. Yeah. And I think even if you talk to my friends across the aisle, many of them would say, I think they would say that Dan does a great job.
So, Mr. Speaker, let's play a little game that we do on this program.
Okay.
I'll start a sentence and you finish it.
Oh boy.
All right? The first one. Sometimes I wish that people would.
Sometimes I wish people would think before they leap.
Okay. The next one. The favorite part of my day is?
The favorite part of my day is the morning. I am a morning person, love the morning, and breakfast is my favorite meal of the day. I love eating breakfast. I can kind of skip the rest of them, but breakfast it's a must. I have to have breakfast.
Okay. I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I wish I could change about myself is?
Well, I wish I was a skinny person, but I'm not a skinny person, and I haven't been. I actually think that over the years I've changed a lot. When I was a young man, I had a pretty hot temper. I could really blow fast, and the legislature kind of teaches you to moderate yourself, because if you don't, it'll eat you alive. There's lots of frustration up there, and you really just have to take it as it comes and work your way through each situation and try to stay as even as you can possibly be. And there are some people that's natural. Mm-hmm. Some people are just naturally kind of even keel. I'm not. And so I've had to work really hard at that.
Have you blown your top yet?
I have. And both times in the last 11 years that it's happened, I regretted it. I don't like that. It's actually not good for me, and it's not good for the other person either.
Okay, my next one is my favorite American president of all time is?
I would say Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan is probably the last really good president we had. And I think history is already showing that. There's others, that have done various things, but I think he was the last real uniter. He could bring people together of all stripes.
Okay.
He really could.
I wish Kansas was more.
I wish Kansas was more hilly.
Hilly?
Instead of flat like it is.
Really? Why is that?
Well, there's two parts of Kansas that I really love the most. I love the southeast and the northeast. Both of them have kind of a rolling hill nature to them. They both have lots of trees. Mm-hmm. Here in Wichita, about the only trees that we have is what's been planted. There's not a whole lot of just natural timber here. And I really love trees. Trees and vegetation really adds a lot to our surroundings. It really does. True. I love. That's the one thing I like about the southeast is you got those huge areas that are just filled with timber.
Right. How would you assess Governor Laura Kelly's performance, and what is she like to work with?
That wasn't one of the questions I thought you would ask. I've known Laura Kelly for a long time. When I was working in the Health and Human Services arena, I was the chair of Health and Human Services on the House side. She was on the Senate side, and she was the ranking Democrat on the Health Committee on the Senate side. And so I worked with her quite a bit. I think Laura Kelly of those days and Laura Kelly today are two different people, two very different people. I think she is really run more by the left side of her party today than she ever was when she was a senator. Some of her ideas are pretty progressive. As a person, I like Laura Kelly. We can smile at each other when we see each other. We do talk. We actually talk quite frequently during session. We meet probably once a week, and we'll have a meeting once a week and discuss the issues. We don't agree a lot. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, we actually disagree on the issues. But
so when you disagree, what happens?
Well, we'll talk about them, and if we disagree, we disagree. Things don't get done. I mean, you can take the tax plan. I believe we had the best tax plan you could possibly have. She didn't agree, and she vetoed it, and we couldn't override the veto. Probably our biggest disappointment, or certainly my biggest disappointment, was not being able to pass our tax package and to deliver tax relief to our folks who are really, the people of Kansas today are really hurting from this massive inflationary period that we're going through, and it's not over. Gas is actually, notice it's starting to filter back down a little bit. Isn't it funny when, or maybe it's amazing should be the word, when all of a sudden gas hits $2.80 and think, wow, gas is coming down. Well, that's still high. That's still $1 higher than what it was 4 years ago.
Are you saying that these are all her fault?
No.
Oh.
No, but but taxes, being able to deliver tax relief to the people would have been helpful, and that is her fault. She chose to veto that bill, and it really, she should have passed it. I and the Senate president were both amazed that she did not pass that bill.
Okay, I have to ask you a very important question
Yeah.
here for the whole state. 10 public media stations in Kansas, radio and television.
Yeah.
Kansas is behind our neighboring states by millions and millions of dollars in support for public broadcasting. You being the speaker, what say you?
Well, I would say that there's an appropriations committee and a ways and means committee in the Senate. If public TV, public radio wants to be heard, they need to come and make presentations to the appropriations folks and the ways and means folks and see what they can do as far as get more money. But it's a process that they have to go through. I don't know if they've gone through that. I don't know if they come and see the appropriators. You've met him. Troy Waymaster is my appropriations chair. He is the guy that tends to make those decisions. And so my question would be, have they come and talked to him? And if they have not, then they probably are not doing their job, and they probably ought to go talk to him.
But you support?
Yeah, I have. Back in the 90s. Back in the 90s, I actually, when KPTS was over on 21st Street, I used to come in and actually man the phones during pledge drives. So I have been a part of public TV for a lot of years.
You support it?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Well, don't stop coming to man the phones.
Yeah.
We can still use you.
You bet.
Okay?
Yep.
So my final question for you is, what is next after Speaker of the House of Representatives? Governor?
No.
President?
No.
What?
No. I always say that to be the governor, you have to truly want to do that. And that's not something I think that I really would be passionate enough to want to do. The speaker is a unique position. We are certainly elected by our peers in the House of Representatives. We're also, of course, elected by our districts. Nothing happens. The governor gets to take credit for a lot of things, but nothing happens in this state without the legislature doing something. And so as the governor goes out each day and does her 4 or 5 press releases and tells people all the great things she did, actually, we did those. She gets to implement them.
Right. Well, I've been speaking with the Kansas Speaker of the House of Representatives, Dan Hawkins. Dan, thank you for joining me one-on-one.
Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for watching. one-on-one@kpts.org is our email address. That's if you have a question or comment. I'm Victor Hogstrom. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.